I wasn't supposed to be home until after 9. That was the plan. A late inventory meeting at the warehouse, team leads, restock cycle changes, the usual dry logistics that drag well into the evening. Ellie even reminded me that morning before I left, "You'll be late tonight, right?" I remember thinking it was nice of her to keep track. But then things shifted. Around 5:30, the meeting got canceled. Something about 2 key managers not being able to make it. We were told to reschedule for Monday. Most of the guys grumbled, already halfway into planning their post-meeting drinks. I didn't join them. Instead, I figured I'd swing by the store to grab her favorite iced tea and head home early. Maybe surprise her. Maybe reconnect. Lately, Ellie had been distant. Not hostile, not exactly cold, but just hard to reach. Like she was constantly somewhere else, even when she was sitting right beside me. Her smile seemed slower to form, like she had to think about whether I deserved one. Her phone was always on silent, always turned face down, and she'd been getting more work texts than usual, even on weekends. I didn't push her on it. Not at first. I chalked it up to stress, deadlines, life creeping in between the cracks of routine. But something about today, maybe the silence in the car, maybe the memory of how quickly she had asked if I'd be gone all evening, made me take a different route home. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just showed up. I parked a little further down the block, half on instinct, half on the off chance that she really was planning something. She's done that before, organized little date nights or made a special dinner. I didn't want to ruin a surprise if that's what it was. I guess part of me still wanted to believe that. But when I walked up to the door, the vibe shifted. Her car was already in the garage. That was odd. She usually got home no earlier than 6:45. She worked at a dental office across town, commutes weren't short. I checked the time, 6:41. Not impossible. Just unlikely. Then I noticed the shoes. They were by the front door, like whoever wore them had arrived in a hurry and didn't bother to tuck them away. Black Nikes, scuffed at the toes. Definitely not mine. Not Ellie's either, she's a size 6 in sneakers and these were easily an 11 or 12. A man's shoe. Athletic. Used. Lived in. I stared at them longer than I should have, my mind trying to make sense of them. Maybe her brother? No. He lives in Arizona. A delivery guy? They don't take off their shoes. A neighbor? Still no reason to leave shoes inside. Before I could come up with anything rational, I heard footsteps. Not heavy, not light either. Just the soft rhythm of someone moving upstairs. Then, unmistakably, her voice. Muffled, but audible. Talking low. A nervous laugh, the kind she does when she's trying to calm someone down or cover her own unease. Then a man's voice. Deep. Quieter. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent a jolt through my spine. The conversation was too mate, too familiar, too cautious. I froze. My first instinct was to call out. To yell up the stairs and make my presence known. But something in me, curiosity, fear, maybe self-preservation, told me to wait. I stood perfectly still near the entrance, half concealed by the hallway wall. I didn't breathe. The voices stopped. A few seconds passed. Then I heard it, the unmistakable creak of the back door opening. Quiet. Deliberate. Followed by silence. Not the kind of silence that settles naturally, but the kind that's manufactured. Like someone holding their breath, hoping they didn't get caught. A few more seconds passed before I heard footsteps again. This time, they were lighter. Slower. Hers. Ellie descended the stairs like she had all the time in the world. She wasn't startled to see me. Surprised, maybe, but not shocked. That was telling. She was dressed casually, leggings, a loose sweater, but I noticed her makeup looked fresh. Not worn from a day's work. Her hair was tied up in the loose bun she usually wore to bed, except it looked too neat to have been slept in. There was a faint flush on her cheeks, the kind you don't get from sitting on the couch watching reruns. "Oh," she said, voice level, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "You're home early." I nodded. I didn't speak. Not yet. I watched her face closely. She had a practiced stillness to her expression, like she'd been running through scenarios in her head and finally settled on one. Her eyes moved past me briefly, toward the hallway that led to the back door. She probably hoped I hadn't noticed anything. But I had. "Meeting got canceled," I said finally. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. She nodded like that made perfect sense. "That's lucky." Neither of us moved for a beat. The silence grew again. She was waiting for me to say something, anything that would confirm her cover story was working. "There was a guy here earlier," she said suddenly, eyes flicking to the ceiling like she was remembering something on the fly. "The electrician. Remember I told you the bedroom outlet was acting weird? He said it could have been a fire hazard, so I scheduled him last minute. I raised my eyebrows slightly but didn't respond right away. Instead, I bent down slowly, picked up one of the sneakers by the door, and turned it over in my hands. There was a smudge of mud on the sole, still wet. Someone had walked through the backyard. Maybe even out the gate. I held it for a second longer than necessary, then set it back down. "That's so?" I said. "Yeah," she said, a little too quickly. "He just left." "You probably passed him, actually." I came in through the front. A flicker of something crossed her face, annoyance, maybe? Or panic, disguised as casual. "Well," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "he went out the back." I nodded slowly. The lie sat in the room like a third person. Then I smelled it. A sharp scent, expensive and overconfident. The kind of cologne that doesn't blend, doesn't fade. Not some cheap spray, it lingered. It clashed with the softer, familiar scent of Ellie's usual vanilla body spray. No tools on the counter. No invoice on the table. No signs of electrical work. She crossed her arms and leaned casually against the wall, but her eyes kept shifting, never meeting mine for long. I looked past her, toward the living room. Nothing out of place. But that was the problem, everything was too clean. The kind of tidy you get when you've wiped away the evidence. I walked past her, heading upstairs. She didn't stop me. I stepped into the bedroom. The outlet near the dresser? Untouched. No signs of work. But the bed looked freshly made, and one of the pillows was slightly out of alignment. Just enough to notice. I opened the window, leaned out slightly, and saw it footprints in the dirt below. 2 sets. One heavier than the other. I came back down, slower this time. Ellie was in the kitchen now, pretending to scroll through her phone. She looked up when she heard me. "You hungry?" she asked, as if everything were normal. I was gonna order Thai. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "Sure. Thai sounds good." She smiled like she'd won something. Like we were back to regular programming. Like I hadn't just watched her lie straight to my face with the ease of someone who'd done it before. But I didn't push it. Not yet. The truth doesn't always need a spotlight to reveal itself. Sometimes it walks in wearing size 11 sneakers and leaves through the back door when it hears your key in the lock. I started remembering everything. After that night, something cracked inside me. It wasn't a blowout fight or dramatic confrontation like you see in movies. No yelling, no tears. Just that invisible fracture running through the middle of things, growing a little more each day. Ellie went about life like nothing had changed, like we were still us. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen, or more specifically, what I hadn't seen. The sneakers, the cologne, the silence that followed. She never mentioned the electrician again. And I never asked. Instead, I watched. And I started remembering. It began with little things, the kind you brush off when you're not looking too closely. A new password on our shared Netflix account. When I asked her about it, she said she must have been logged out and just reset it. No big deal. But it was one of many. Then came the phone. She'd always left it out before, charging by the nightstand, screen lighting up with random notifications. Now it was always face down. Always in her back pocket. She took it with her into the bathroom, the shower, even when she stepped outside for a quick walk around the block. One night, I heard it buzz at 2 a.m. I opened my eyes and turned toward her side of the bed. She was already reaching for it. "Just spam," she muttered, turning away from me. That was when the pit in my stomach started to form. I began to replay conversations in my head, things I'd ignored before because trusting her was second nature. How she'd started going to the gym, for instance. Ellie hated gyms. Hated them with a passion. She once called it a human zoo with treadmills. But out of nowhere, she got a membership. Bought brand new leggings. Started going 5 times a week, always in the evenings. When I offered to go with her, she laughed. "You hate cardio," she said. "And anyway, this is my me time." Fair enough. Or at least, it was until I realized she never talked about the gym. Never mentioned classes, trainers, sore muscles. She came back looking refreshed, not exhausted. And she always showered before getting home. The scent of her perfume changed, too. She used to wear the soft citrus blend that always reminded me of late summer. Now it was something stronger. Bolder. Not bad, just unfamiliar. When I asked about it, she brushed it off like it was nothing. It was a free sample. Thought I'd try something new. She'd been trying a lot of things new lately. Then there was the lingerie. I found the receipt tucked between the pages of a book on her nightstand, a lacy red set from a boutique downtown. Not her usual place. Not her usual size. I stared at it for a long time before I asked. Not confrontational, just curious. She shrugged. It was on sale. Haven't even worn it. Probably going to return it. But she never returned it. And I never saw it again. It was like trying to remember a dream after you've woken up. You get fragments, flashes, sensations, but never the full picture. Still, those fragments started stacking. And together, they formed a narrative I didn't want to admit was real. I began keeping mental notes. When she left. When she returned. How long it took. What she wore. Who she claimed to be with. Sometimes the pieces fit. Sometimes they didn't. And the more I paid attention, the more I realized how well practiced her excuses were. She'd always been quick on her feet, but now her answers felt too smooth. Polished. Like she'd thought through every possible question before I even asked it. Who were you texting? Oh, just Rachel. She's planning her sister's baby shower. Late dinner. Yeah, Melissa had a crisis with her boyfriend. I couldn't just leave. I thought you were working late? I was, but I ran into Erin on the way out. We grabbed a drink. Erin. Rachel. Melissa. Her coworkers. Her excuses. I never once got a photo. Never once heard a story that started with, "You'll never guess what happened to us." It was always vague. Always distant. Always just out of reach. I started to realize how much I had talked myself out of suspicion over the last few months. When she canceled date nights. When she declined invitations to hang out with our mutual friends. When she stopped planning things altogether and left that to me. At first, I thought it was stress. Then I thought it was just a phase. But now I wasn't so sure it had anything to do with me at all. We were still sleeping in the same bed, but something between us had hollowed out. She was present physically, but not emotionally. Her laugh didn't come as easily. Her hugs felt shorter. She stopped doing the little things, the forehead kisses, the random texts, the late-night snacks we used to make together when we couldn't sleep. We used to talk about everything. Now, we talked like strangers at a bus stop, polite, distant, transactional. One night, I got up to get water around midnight. She wasn't in bed. The bathroom light was off. The house was quiet. I found her downstairs on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the screen. When she saw me, she jumped a little. Couldn't sleep, she said. Didn't want to toss and turn and wake you up? I nodded and walked back upstairs. I didn't believe her. And I hated that I didn't believe her. But once the doubt sets in, it doesn't leave quietly. It clings. It questions. It replays. You remember every smile that looked forced. Every hug that felt rehearsed. Every time she left the room to take a call. Every time she texted and tilted her screen away just slightly. I even remembered our anniversary dinner 2 months back. She'd been distracted the whole time. Checked her watch twice. Got up to take a call from work and was gone for nearly 15 minutes. When she came back, her phone was still unlocked and I saw a text preview. Don't worry, he's clueless. It vanished before I could see the sender. At the time, I laughed it off. Thought maybe it was some friend joking around. I didn't ask. I didn't want to look paranoid. I told myself not to overthink it. But now? Now I wondered how many moments like that had passed under my nose. How many signs I had ignored. How many lies I had swallowed because I didn't want to believe the woman I loved could hurt me like that. I started looking for things, not in a desperate, obsessive way, but with quiet intention. Her search history. Her calendar. Subtle cues. I noticed she never left her phone unlocked anymore. She changed her passwords again. I found the remnants of a deleted photo album in the cloud, but nothing was recoverable. Everything felt scrubbed clean, like she knew someone might one day look. There was one evening where I tried to initiate a conversation. We were sitting on the couch, her scrolling endlessly through her phone, me pretending to watch a movie. I miss us, I said quietly. She looked up, almost surprised. What do you mean? I don't know, I said. Feels like we're roommates these days. She blinked, then smiled softly. Work's just been crazy. You know how it is. I nodded. But that wasn't it. I knew it. And maybe she knew I knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling while she breathed steadily beside me, her back turned like always now. It felt like sharing a bed with a memory. One I couldn't wake up from. And that's when the final realization hit me. This wasn't a rough patch. This wasn't distance. This wasn't miscommunication. It was a pattern. A carefully curated one. Every lie, every excuse, every subtle shift in her behavior, it all pointed in one direction. She was living a double life. And I had been the placeholder in the one she was preparing to leave behind. I saw everything with my own eyes. Suspicion is exhausting. It drains you slowly like a leak in the back of your mind. You try to live your life, keep up appearances, act like everything's fine, but it's always there. Gnawing. Whispering. Telling you you're either about to uncover something devastating or you're losing your mind. I'd spent weeks living in that fog, walking the razor's edge between doubt and certainty. Until one day I decided I was done guessing. It was a Thursday evening when I made my move. Ellie had just finished getting ready for the gym. She came downstairs in black leggings, a form-fitting hoodie, and that new perfume, the bold one I never liked but never commented on. Her hair was tied back, makeup light but too perfect for a workout. "Don't wait up," she said casually, slinging her gym bag over her shoulder. "Leg day again?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She gave a soft laugh, a little too rehearsed. "You know it." I smiled, kissed her cheek, and watched her walk out the door. She didn't notice I'd left my keys by the fruit bowl instead of taking them with me. She didn't notice I waited a full 60 seconds before slipping on my shoes and quietly following her. I'd planned this out. I knew she claimed to go to a gym about 15 minutes across town, off Westwood, next to the big strip mall. But something about the schedule never lined up. So I drove there once last week and asked casually about her membership. The woman at the front desk had smiled politely and said, "Ellie? Sorry, doesn't look like we have anyone by that name in our system." That was all I needed. Now, as I trailed her car from a few lengths behind, my heart pounded with a sick kind of anticipation. I wasn't hoping to be wrong anymore. I just wanted to know. I wanted to stop living in maybe. She didn't take the freeway like she usually claimed. Instead, she wound through side streets and ended up pulling into the parking lot of a mid-range hotel tucked between a dry cleaner and an abandoned diner. Not sketchy, but definitely not gym-adjacent. I parked across the street and turned off my headlights. She sat in her car for a minute, glancing at her phone. Then a black Honda pulled in beside her. A man got out, tall, maybe mid-30s, athletic build. He wore jeans, a fitted black jacket, and a relaxed smile that made my stomach turn. Ellie got out and walked around to meet him. They didn't hug. Not at first. She touched his arm, said something that made him laugh, then looked around, casual, like she was checking for traffic. Not like she was looking for me. Then they walked together toward the side entrance of the hotel, the one farthest from the lobby. He opened the door for her. She didn't even glance back. I waited. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe 45 minutes. Maybe more. I kept telling myself to go home, to walk away, to avoid becoming the guy who sits alone in a parked car hoping for something awful to unfold. But the truth already had unfolded. I just hadn't seen it yet. An hour later, they came back out. She was laughing. Really laughing. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. The kind of laugh I used to think was reserved for me. He placed a hand on her lower back as they walked. She didn't flinch. Didn't move it away. She leaned into it. Then he kissed her. It wasn't quick. It wasn't unsure. It was the kind of kiss you give someone you're comfortable with. Someone you've kissed a dozen times before. Maybe 100. She didn't resist. She kissed him back. I stayed perfectly still. No rage. No yelling. No wild, cinematic confrontation. I just pulled out my phone and hit record. I captured the way they smiled at each other afterward. The way she touched his chest and said something I couldn't hear. The way they looked like they had all the time in the world, no guilt, no panic, no rush to separate. They said their goodbyes by the cars. She got in hers. He got in his. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror and fluffed her hair. Then she drove off like nothing happened. I waited until they were both gone before I let myself breathe. I didn't follow her home. I didn't want her to see me. Not yet. Instead, I drove aimlessly for an hour, maybe two. The city looked different. Quieter. Even the gas station signs felt like they were whispering things I didn't want to hear. I pulled into a diner around midnight. Sat in the far corner. Ordered a coffee I didn't drink. And replayed the video on my phone at least 10 times. Each time I hoped I'd see something different. Each time I didn't. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't conflicted. She looked happy. Lighter. Like she just walked out of a movie, not a hotel room with a man who wasn't her husband. I wondered if this had been going on for weeks. Months. A year? Maybe he wasn't the only one. Maybe he was just the one she got caught with. The reality that I might never know everything stung worse than the betrayal itself. But I knew enough. When I finally got home, she was already asleep. Or pretending to be. I didn't care. I didn't ask. I just stood there in the doorway of the bedroom watching her breathe evenly beneath the covers. She looked peaceful. Innocent. I wondered how long she'd been rehearsing that performance. I slipped into the guest room and locked the door. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Kissed me on the cheek, made toast, scrolled her phone. No mention of the gym. No explanation. No guilt. She asked me if I wanted anything from the store. I said no. Then I watched her walk out the door with the same gym bag slung over her shoulder. She was good. I'll give her that. But now I was better. Because now I had what I needed. The image of that kiss, frozen in my mind like a photograph. The sound of her laugh recorded with crystal clarity on my phone. The truth not imagined, not suspected, not speculated. Seen, she left promising to return, but I already knew that door wouldn't open for her again. The morning after I saw her with him, I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't want to, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need to. When you've seen the truth, really seen it up close and undeniable, there's a strange kind of power in silence. Words become unnecessary. She could spin 100 excuses, cry 1,000 tears, but nothing would change what I'd recorded, what I'd witnessed. That kiss, that laugh, that look in her eyes. She hadn't just slipped up. She'd stepped out. Willingly. Repeatedly. I stopped waiting for explanations the moment I saw her fix her hair in the rearview mirror like she was coming back from lunch, not an affair. That morning, she floated around the kitchen like everything was fine. Asked if I wanted eggs. Mentioned something about needing to pick up dry cleaning. I nodded, smiled once or twice, but said little. My words were all used up. I had already started mentally packing her things. Not out of rage, but out of quiet clarity. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. And I sure as hell wasn't going to listen to another lie in that house. Later that afternoon, while she was in the shower, I pulled out 3 boxes from the garage, plain cardboard, leftover from when we moved in 3 years ago. I set them in the guest room. I didn't touch anything yet. I just needed to see the space, to imagine it. When she came out wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. Yeah, just thinking about how I had let her stay in this home after she'd already walked out of it in every way that mattered. She nodded, probably assuming I was sulking or maybe retreating into that harmless, oblivious role I'd apparently been playing so well. She didn't know yet, but I think on some level she felt it. That night, she came to me, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. The kind of gesture she hadn't offered in weeks. "I've been thinking," she said softly. "Maybe I'll go stay with Rachel this weekend. Just to get some space. Clear my head a little." Rachel, the mythical fallback friend. Always conveniently available in the script. I didn't flinch. Didn't call her out. "Okay," I said. "You're not mad?" she asked. I turned slightly, met her eyes, and said no. "If you need time, take it." She smiled with just the edges of her lips. Not relief. Not joy. Just calculation. "Thanks for understanding," she whispered. She packed light, just a small duffel. A few outfits, her makeup bag, phone charger. She made a show of hugging me before she left. "This isn't forever," she said. "Just a few days." I nodded. She touched my cheek. "I love you." I didn't say it back. She didn't seem to notice. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, I stood up. I walked to the lock and turned it. Slowly. Firmly. Then I changed it. Right then and there. Took the old hardware off the door and installed a new set I'd picked up days earlier during one of those "maybe I'm crazy but I need to be ready" moments. She thought she'd come back and find everything waiting for her. Her shoes by the door. Her robe hanging on the hook. Her life untouched. But she was wrong. Because while she was out playing house with someone else, I had quietly started disassembling the one we'd built together. I moved methodically. No theatrics. No vengeance. I gathered her things one drawer at a time. Folded them neatly. Packed them in the boxes. I labeled each one: bathroom, closet, desk, miscellaneous. I found her keepsakes tucked away in drawers. Old photos, handwritten notes, receipts from vacations. I didn't burn them. I didn't rip them up. I just put them in a box and sealed it. I found the red lingerie, the one she swore she'd never worn, still in the original boutique bag, stuffed behind her winter coats. I didn't need to wonder who it had been for. I placed it on top of the final box, gently folded. Let her take that truth with her. In the closet, I found a shirt that wasn't mine. Gray, slim fit, unfamiliar brand. Smelled faintly of cologne. Maybe she'd forgotten it was there. Maybe she thought I'd never look. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I just dropped it into the donation pile. By the time I was done, her presents had been reduced to 6 boxes stacked in the guest room. I didn't touch our wedding photo on the mantle. I didn't need to. It looked like a picture of 2 strangers anyway. That evening, I sat on the couch, the one we'd picked out together on a rainy weekend years ago, and turned on the TV. I muted it almost immediately. The noise felt like an interruption. Instead, I listened to the house. The quiet was different now. Less hollow. Less tense. It was a quiet that said, "You're finally alone, but not abandoned. Just Free. The next morning, she texted me. Hey, made it to Rachel's. Hope you're okay. Miss you already. I stared at it for a minute. Then I set my phone down. No response. That afternoon, I called a storage service and scheduled a pickup for her things. I gave them the guest room location and told them it was prepaid for 3 months. I printed out the code and slipped it into an envelope labeled with her name. That night, she texted again. Can we talk tomorrow? I think we need to reset. Reset. Like this was a router. I didn't reply. The next day, she called. I let it ring. That evening, she drove up. I watched from the kitchen window as she stepped out of her car, duffel in hand. She looked tired, maybe a little nervous. She walked up to the front door like it was still hers. She tried her key. Nothing. She tried again. Jiggled it. Knocked once. Then twice. Brian? She called. Can you open up? I think something's wrong with the lock. I didn't answer. I watched her step back, glance around, confusion growing into worry. She called my phone. It lit up on the counter. I let it go to voicemail. She knocked again. Louder this time. Brian, come on. What is this? Still nothing. Eventually, she stepped away from the door and checked her messages. Maybe she thought I'd sent her something. An explanation. A warning. But there was nothing. Only silence. She stood there for a few minutes, unsure of what to do. Finally, she reached into her bag and pulled out a spare key, the one I'd forgotten she had. She tried the lock again. It didn't fit. That's when she knew. I watched the realization set in. Her hand paused on the knob. Her mouth parted slightly. This door was no longer hers. She knocked once more, then just stood there. I didn't move. Eventually, she turned and walked back to her car. Slower this time. She looked up at the windows once, maybe hoping I'd be there. But I didn't wave. Didn't show my face. She got in and drove off. She didn't take the boxes. I knew she'd be back. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next week. But eventually, she would come to collect what was left of her life here. But when she did, she'd find it packed, labeled, and waiting. Not because I was angry, but because I was done. The door didn't slam. It didn't creak. It simply stayed shut. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally exhale. After she left. After the lock turned and the boxes were stacked in the guest room, the house grew quieter, but the silence wasn't lonely. It was intentional, like finally closing the lid on something that had been hissing steam for far too long. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Ellie had moved in with a friend of hers in Richmond, someone I vaguely remembered from a barbecue years ago. A woman named Marnie. Tall, red hair, too many bracelets, always smiling in a way that never quite reached her eyes. Ellie once told me she was one of those people who always needs chaos to feel alive. Back then, it was a harmless comment. Now it felt like foreshadowing. For the first week, there was nothing but radio silence from her side. Then slowly, things started leaking through. Not from Ellie directly, but from everyone else. It began with a mutual acquaintance, Jason. We'd worked on a short freelance project together years ago, and we'd always stayed loosely connected through social media. He messaged me out of the blue one evening. Hey man, I don't want to step on anything sensitive, but I heard about you and Ellie. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. If I'd known you didn't know. That last part stuck with me. If I'd known you didn't know. I asked him what he meant. He hesitated, then sent another message. I saw her a few times over the past few months. Out with some guy. Always thought it was just a friend or a cousin or something. They didn't seem discreet. Guess I assumed you two were open or whatever. Sorry again, man. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying with a simple thanks. After that, the cracks kept widening. Her sister, Maddie, texted me a few days later. We hadn't spoken since Christmas when she gifted us a cheesy kitchen sign that read "Love builds a happy home." The irony wasn't lost on me now. Her message came in late, almost midnight. Brian, I don't know if it's my place, but I feel like I need to say this. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. I saw signs. She changed. And it wasn't just recently. She's done this before. My stomach dropped. I called her. She picked up on the second ring, her voice quiet like she'd been expecting the call. You said she's done this before, I said, skipping the greetings. She sighed. Back in college. And again, before you two moved in together. It wasn't serious, or at least that's what she said. But I always thought, if she didn't deal with it then. Why didn't you ever tell me? I asked. Not accusing. Just trying to understand. Because she always made me feel like I was overstepping. And honestly, you looked so happy. I didn't want to be the reason things unraveled. She was crying by the end of the call. Apologizing. Telling me I didn't deserve it. Telling me I had always been good to her sister. But good doesn't mean anything to someone who needs more attention, more excitement, more freedom disguised as secrecy. Maddie wasn't the only one. Another day, I ran into Marcus at the grocery store, an old coworker of Ellie's. He recognized me in the cereal aisle and approached cautiously. Hey, man. Didn't mean to sneak up on you, he said. I nodded, trying to gauge where this was going. I just wanted to say, look, we all thought you knew. I froze. Knew what? That she was seeing someone else. It wasn't like some hidden scandal. She wasn't exactly private about it outside your circle. She showed up to a happy hour with him once. Sat close. They left early. I didn't ask questions. My chest tightened. How long ago was this? He thought for a second. Maybe February? Yeah, that sounds right. It was May now. He clapped me on the shoulder awkwardly and mumbled another apology before walking off. The pieces were falling into place faster than I could keep up. Ellie hadn't been hiding what she was doing. Not really. She just wasn't doing it in our neighborhood. In our world. She was living two lives, our life and then whatever counterfeit version she had stitched together outside it. And people knew. They just didn't say anything. Some because they assumed I already knew. Some because they didn't want to get involved. Some maybe because they didn't think I'd believe them if they did. It's funny how quickly your reality can be unraveled not just by the person who betrays you, but by the people who silently watched it happen. I don't blame all of them. I really don't. There's no instruction manual for this kind of thing. Nobody wants to be the one who ruins a marriage with the truth. It's easier to stay quiet. To mind your business. To wait until someone else blows the whistle. But I still felt it. That echo of humiliation. The sense that I was the last to know. I started scrolling through her old social media accounts, not obsessively but curiously. Posts that once looked innocent now felt pointed. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Photos with her coworkers cropped just so. One caption stood out, "Cheers to secrets we'll never tell." It had over 50 likes. Mostly from people I'd never met. I clicked through a few of their profiles. One of them, a guy named Ryan, popped up more than once. Group photos, inside jokes and comments, even a video of Ellie's birthday dinner, one I wasn't invited to because she claimed it was just a girls' night. There he was, sitting right next to her. My hands shook, but I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. Just confirmation. I hadn't lost someone loyal. I had been living next to someone who was always half a step away from leaving. Someone who could smile in your face and lie between her teeth without blinking. Ellie wasn't evil. I know how that sounds, but she wasn't. She was just hollow. Like she needed constant refills of attention, validation, excitement. And when the cup ran dry, she'd move on to someone else who'd fill it for a little while longer. That kind of emptiness can't be healed by love. I know that now. People started reaching out more after that. A message here. A quiet apology there. Some told me I was better off. Some told me they always had a strange feeling about her. One guy even said, she had that look, like someone always scanning for the next best thing. I didn't respond to all of them, but I read every word. It didn't make me feel better, but it made me feel seen. Not invisible, not stupid, just human. A guy who trusted the wrong person for too long. The final straw came in the form of an email. From an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, just one sentence. She's been with at least 2 others, not just the one you saw. No name, no details. No signature. I didn't try to trace it. I didn't forward it. I just read it once and closed my laptop. Because it didn't matter anymore. 1 lie or 5, what difference did it make? The dam had already broken. The foundation had already crumbled. I wasn't interested in digging through the rubble to count every broken piece. The truth was simple. The person I married wasn't the person I thought she was. And now that everyone else was confirming it, I didn't feel crazy anymore. I felt free. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope showed up in the mail. No return address, no handwritten note, just the cold mechanics of her attorney's office. Finalized divorce papers. Sign here, initial there. Nothing else. Not even a sorry. I sat with them on the table for a full day, staring at the lines that used to mean something. Then I signed. Not because I was ready, but because I didn't want to belong to someone who treated endings like emails. After the papers were sent back, life got still. I deleted her number, closed our shared accounts. Friends faded too, unsure how to act, unsure whose side to take. Some nights, I still heard her hum in the back of my mind. Then, one afternoon, Ryan, the other man, called. Said she was already dating someone new. He sounded bitter. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel anything. She never stayed. She just leaped. This time, she wouldn't land anywhere near me.